The leaves were falling in slow, golden drifts when I pulled into Willow Creek, a sleepy Midwest town I hadn't seen in a decade. The air smelled of damp earth and wood smoke, a scent that dragged me back to childhood, back to a life I'd left behind. I was 35 now, a freelance journalist living in Chicago, far from the creaky porches and whispered gossip of this place. But here I was, driving my beat-up sedan down Main Street, past the diner where I used to sip milkshakes, toward the house I once called home. My father, Henry Dawson, had died 3 days ago. A heart attack, they said. Quick, painless. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since our last fight, when he'd called me selfish for moving away, for choosing my career over family. Now he was gone, and I'd come back for the funeral, though I wasn't sure why. Closure, maybe, or guilt. The house looked smaller than I remembered, its white paint peeling like old skin, the front yard overgrown with weeds. My mother had passed when I was 16, leaving just me and Dad to stumble through the years that followed. We'd never been good at talking, too much pride, too many unspoken hurts. I parked and stepped out, the crunch of gravel under my boots the only sound in the stillness. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with dust and memories. The living room was unchanged, the same faded couch, the same bookshelf stuffed with westerns he loved. I was supposed to meet my Aunt June here to sort through his things, but she was late, so I wandered upstairs to his bedroom. That's where I found it, a leather-bound journal tucked under his pillow, its edges worn soft from years of handling. I sat on the bed, the springs creaking under me, and flipped it open. His handwriting sprawled across the pages, jagged and familiar. Most of it was mundane, notes about the weather, the price of gas, a deer he'd seen in the backyard. But then, halfway through, a single entry stopped me cold. October 12th, 2004. I saw her again today. She looks so much like Claire. It hurts. I should have told her about Lily years ago. But how do you admit something like that? She'd never forgive me. My breath caught. Lily? Who was Lily? And why did she look like me? I turned the page, my heart pounding. Lily's 25 now. I keep my distance, but it's hard. She's got her mother's eyes, those same green eyes Claire has. I ruined everything back then, and now it's too late. I stared at the words, my mind racing. 25 in 2004 meant this Lily would be 45 now. 10 years older than me. A sister, a cousin. My father had never mentioned anyone named Lily, not once. I flipped through more pages, desperate for answers, but the entries grew sparse after that, as if the weight of the secret had silenced him. Then, near the end, one last line. If Claire ever finds out, she'll hate me. But maybe she deserves to know. The front door creaked open downstairs, snapping me out of my daze. Claire! You up there? Aunt June's voice called, warm but tired. I shoved the journal into my bag and hurried down, pasting on a smile. June was Dad's younger sister, a plump woman with graying hair and a knack for avoiding hard questions. Hey, Aunt June, I said, hugging her. She smelled of lavender and cigarettes. Sorry I'm late, she muttered, setting a casserole dish on the counter. The ladies at church wouldn't stop talking. You holding up okay? I nodded, though my thoughts were still tangled in that journal. Yeah, just taking it in. We spent the next hour sorting through Dad's clothes and papers, boxing up what little he'd left behind. But my mind kept drifting to Lily. Who was she? Why had he hidden her? Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. Aunt June, I said, keeping my tone casual as I folded a flannel shirt, did Dad ever mention someone named Lily? Her hands froze, mid-motion, a stack of papers slipping slightly in her grip. She recovered quickly, but not before I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. "Lily?" she said too brightly. "No, doesn't ring a bell. Why?" I studied her, the way her mouth twitched, the way she wouldn't meet my gaze. "Just something I read in his stuff," I lied. "No big deal." She nodded, busying herself with the papers, but the air between us had shifted. She knew something she wasn't telling me. After she left, I sat on the couch with the journal, rereading that entry. She looks so much like Claire, a sister. It had to be. But why keep her a secret? I grabbed my laptop and started digging. Old town records, obituaries, anything I could find online about a Lily in Willow Creek. Hours later, I stumbled across a birth certificate from 1979. Lily Marie Harper. Mother listed as Ellen Harper. Father, Henry Dawson, my father. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. I had a half-sister born 10 years before me to a woman I'd never heard of. Ellen Harper. The name gnawed at me. I vaguely remembered a woman named Ellen from my childhood, a quiet, pale figure who'd worked at the town library. She died when I was a kid, hit by a drunk driver, or so I'd heard. Had Dad been with her before Mom? During? I needed answers, and Aunt June was my only lead. The next morning I drove to her house, a tidy little bungalow on the edge of town. She was in her garden, pruning roses when I pulled up. "Claire, what a surprise," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Thought you'd be heading back to Chicago by now." "I need to talk," I said, cutting to the chase. "About Lily." Her face paled, and she turned away, fussing with a rose bush. "I told you, I don't know any Lily." "Don't lie to me," I snapped, pulling the journal from my bag and holding it up. "Dad wrote about her. She's his daughter, isn't she? My sister?" June's shoulders slumped, and she sank onto a garden bench, her hands trembling. "Oh, Claire," she whispered, "you weren't supposed to find out." "Find out what?" I pressed, sitting beside her. "Who is she? Why didn't he tell me?" She stared at the ground, her voice barely audible. "Lily's your half-sister. Ellen Harper was... She and your dad had an affair years before you were born. Your mom didn't know until after Ellen got pregnant. It tore them apart for a while, but they stayed together for you when you came along. Ellen raised Lily alone, and Henry swore he'd keep it quiet. He didn't want you hurt." I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. An affair, a secret sister. "Where is she now?" I asked, my throat tight. June hesitated, then met my eyes. "She still lives here, Claire. Lily Harper. She works at the hardware store on Elm Street, but you can't just..." I didn't wait for her to finish. I drove straight to Elm Street, my heart hammering. The hardware store was a squat brick building, its windows plastered with faded sale signs. Inside, I saw her before she saw me, a woman with dark hair streaked with gray, her green eyes startlingly like mine. She was ringing up a customer, her movements quick and efficient. I stood frozen, clutching the journal, until she looked up and our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she frowned, stepping out from behind the counter. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice low, cautious. "I'm Claire Dawson," I said, my voice shaking. "Henry's daughter." Her face went still, recognition dawning in her eyes. "Oh," she said softly. I didn't think you knew." "I didn't," I admitted, holding up the journal. "Not until now. He wrote about you." She took a step back, her hands fidgeting with her apron. "What do you want from me?" "I just want to understand," I said. "Why he hid you. What happened?" She glanced around, then nodded toward a back room. Let's talk. We sat on folding chairs in a cluttered storage space, the air thick with the smell of paint and sawdust. I didn't want to be a secret, she began, her voice steady but laced with old pain. Dad, Henry, came around sometimes when I was a kid, gave Mom money when he could, but he made it clear I wasn't part of his real family, not like you. Her words cut deep, a mirror to my own hurt. I didn't know, I said. I would have. It's not your fault, she interrupted. He chose to bury it. After Mom died, I stopped expecting anything from him. Built my own life here. Why stay in Willow Creek? I asked. She shrugged, a faint smile tugging at her lips. It's home, and maybe I hoped one day he'd change his mind. Tell you. We sat in silence, the weight of our shared history pressing down. Then she added, There's more, though. Something he never told me either. My stomach tightened. What? She pulled a photo from her pocket, an old Polaroid of two girls, one about 5, the other a toddler standing by the lake. That's me, she said, pointing to the older girl. And I think it's you. Look at the date. I took the photo, my hands trembling. July 1992. I'd have been 2. We met? I whispered. Once, she said. I remember it vaguely, a picnic by the lake. Then Mom pulled me away, said we couldn't come back. I didn't know why until years later. I stared at the picture, my toddler self smiling beside her, a memory stolen from me. There's something else, she said, her voice dropping. Mom told me once that someone went missing that summer, a boy from town. She thought Dad knew more than he let on. The words hit like a punch. A missing boy? I remembered whispers from my childhood, rumors about a kid who vanished near the lake, a case never solved. You think Dad was involved? I asked, dread pooling in my gut. I don't know, Lily said, but Mom was scared. She stopped talking about it after that. I leaned back, my mind reeling. Had Dad hidden more than just a daughter? Had he buried something darker? Over the next few days, I dug into old newspaper archives at the library. July 1992. Tommy Ellis, age 10, disappeared while fishing at Willow Creek Lake. No witnesses, no leads. The case went cold. I confronted Aunt June again, showing her the photo. She broke down, sobbing. It was an accident, she confessed. Henry and Ellen were there that day, with you and Lily. Tommy was playing too close to the water. He slipped, hit his head on a rock. Henry panicked, thought he'd be blamed. They hid the body in the woods, swore never to tell. The truth crashed over me like a wave. My father wasn't just a liar. He'd covered up a death. And I'd been there, too young to remember, an unwitting piece of his secret. Lily and I met again that night at the lake, standing where it happened. What do we do now? She asked, her voice trembling. We live with it, I said, staring at the dark water. But we don't let it define us. He doesn't get to anymore. In the weeks that followed, Lily and I grew closer, not as sisters bound by blood, but by choice, by the shared scars of a man who'd failed us both. I left Willow Creek not with closure, but with something better, a truth I could face and a family I'd found on my own terms. Lesson learned. The past can hurt, and secrets can bury us, but facing them is the only way to break free. Family isn't defined by who we're born to. It's forged by those who stand with us through the hardest truths. Don't let silence steal your story. Seek the answers, even when they're painful. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs it, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Subscribe now so you don't miss more tales of courage, mystery, and redemption. Let's keep these stories alive, because the truth deserves to be heard.